and welcome to today's special webinar event on NoSQL protection, why native database replication is not enough. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, there are a few things you should know about this webinar. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the question box on in your webinar control panel. While we won't be able to do a live Q&A today, our speakers will be able to see your questions and respond to them after the event. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. Rubrik provided 3 PDFs, one on the top 20 questions to ask when modernizing your backup, another on modern data protection for databases, and a definitive guide to Rubrik Cloud Data. Rubrik also provided a link to a Gartner Magic Quadrant report. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. We recognize that some of you work for organizations that don't allow you to accept prizes. If that's the case for you, or if you want to donate the value of the gift card, we do work with several great charitable organizations, and thanks to generous prize winners on previous Actual Tech Media events, thousands of dollars have been donated to those organizations. So thank you in advance if you make that choice today. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. And with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today, Justin Rees, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik, and Vipul Gupta, Senior Product Manager at Rubrik. And now I'm going to turn things over to Justin.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Really great to be here. And hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. So as mentioned, my name is Justin Rees, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Rubrik. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Vipul, who's one of our Senior Product Managers who actually looks after some of our database solutions. And so we're both very excited to be here with all of you to take a little bit of time to talk about why native replication is not a replacement for backup and recovery of NoSQL databases. And so today, I will take you through some of the common challenges or pitfalls of protecting NoSQL databases with native protection. And we'll pull directly from our experiences, working with customers before quickly taking you through the Rubrik kind of approach. From there, I'll hand it over to Vipul for the fun part, and that is a live demonstration where he will walk through a few key use cases that I think you'll really find helpful. And lastly, as we close things out, I will highlight a few resources to help you get started, as well as some maybe potential next steps, and even cover a few of the most commonly asked questions we run into as it relates to Rubrik NoSQL protection. So a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump in. So first and foremost, I think it's more than safe to say that NoSQL databases have gone mainstream, and they're really here to stay. And more organizations are adopting modern NoSQL databases like MongoDB and/or Cassandra and DataStax, really to enable the rapid development of their next generation applications without incurring the costs associated with the typical relational databases. And so whether those applications are related to customer experience applications, the IoT, AI or machine learning, or even e-commerce, the market has seen growing traction since the late 2000s, and I think everyone expects to see that growth to continue. And that's for a good reason. NoSQL database is compact with a number of unique capabilities, including things like native database replication, developer-friendly usability, built-in sharding for high volume and large-scale data sets, all of which really allow NoSQL databases to support high availability, flexible data models, even support some big data capabilities, and not to mention were built during the era of the cloud. However, while these databases can help speed up application development, they do lack, general backup and recovery solutions today that enterprises need to wrangle their growing database environments, really putting them at risk of potential data loss. And so while NoSQL databases offer capabilities such as cross data center database replication, they do not provide, point-in-time backup and recovery, which means if data errors are introduced or data is accidentally deleted, the database's redundant node replication can lead, to almost an immediate corruption of critical data across all the nodes. And so let's go a little bit deeper here and run through, some of the other common pitfalls that we see. And to kick things off, first, NoSQL backup management solutions often rely on a legacy media server architecture to process and manage backup and restore operations. And these legacy architectures really centralize the control of the backup processes and move or store the backed up data through a single server, resulting in siloed performance and scalability. But also, while using these native tools, can definitely be convenient, they can unfortunately become a bottleneck when you look to scale your backup performance. And really, your only option is to add more media servers, which really only exacerbates the problem and ultimately hurts the bottom line. So instead, what enterprises need is the ability to support parallel data streaming without a media server. And this will remove the bottleneck created by a media server-based architecture and really will enable them to easily scale up to meet the performance demands while still being able to easily tie into those NoSQL databases. But next, it's really important, to point out that a manual database dump leveraging homegrown scripting should really not be a part of an enterprise backup strategy. It just doesn't scale well and can be problematic when backing up sharded clusters and replica sets, but not to mention is prone to human error. And additionally, the granularity of data that can be protected is really restricted here. And so what this means is that today's organizations really need the ability to stream data in parallel to a secondary, backup storage by using lightweight application listeners deployed on each node. And that way, there's no need to quiesce the database, really delivering consistency for your organization's sharded and unsharded database configurations. Now, the next challenge, that we're seeing here is related to incremental backups. And so to create point-in-time backups, most native NoSQL backup management solutions require a full copy of every protected database be updated with a stream of op logs, in addition really to point-in-time snapshots. And this complex workflow really makes the backup process slow and really necessitates a costly upfront investment in the infrastructure. And so we want to look for in a solution is an incremental forever approach that will significantly reduce your RPOs and RTOs. It is important to note, that the ideal solution deliver incremental backups in native NoSQL formats. And this next challenge, I think personally is pretty interesting. NoSQL databases definitely enable developers to move as fast as any startup without incurring, those additional costs associated with typical relational databases. However, as it relates to backup and recovery, NoSQL databases can increase your backup storage costs if you aren't careful. And the reason for that is that, native backup solutions use their own block-based deduplication of full backup snapshots when block storage is being utilized. And while the upside of this approach is, some storage efficiency, block-based deduplication significantly slows down the backup and recovery process as the number of blocks increases. Now, one way organizations are dealing with this is by increasing the block size. However, if the block size is too large, the storage efficiency can be compromised and really ultimately resulting in higher storage costs. So unlike block level deduplication, what you really want is a solution that implements semantic deduplication, which allows the reduction of multiple replicas into a single kind of golden copy. And lastly, one other thing to keep an eye on is data mobility. And reason being, delivering data mobility to refresh or push data into test dev often requires restoring data to a cluster with a different topology and from the source cluster. Unfortunately, most of the time, native backup solutions must restore data to the original topology, and that can be shards or even replica sets, making it difficult to create smaller test dev clusters. And so ideally, your solution will provide multiple features that can help your organization quickly accelerate building test dev databases. And these features should include, topology-free restores and any-to-any recovery across sharded and unsharded clusters. But unfortunately, the challenges don't just stop there. In addition to the technical challenges presented, by NoSQL databases, we often see database teams struggle with a number of kind of what we call general database protection challenges as well. And first, database protection usually comes with a lot of manual scripting and job scheduling, which can be time-consuming and error-prone. But next, these database systems are hugely complex, and often so are the backup and recovery tools that are being used to keep them protected. And this can lead, to practically relying on a specialist who's familiar with these systems to do almost anything, greatly restricting the day-to-day kind of generalist from being able to jump in and help creating not only single points of failure, but adding unnecessary time. But also, there's often a lack of centralized management, kind of monitoring and reporting, which is a big problem as today's database teams are faced with more database types today than ever before across more places than ever before. And this has, led to an operational challenge for most as they're forced to juggle multiple point solutions that compound the challenge of juggling siloed tools and processes, really creating duplicated resources and even data ownership ambiguity. And so that's why at Rubrik, when we think about database protection, there are a number of key features or requirements that we believe are an absolute must. First is the ability to really operate and manage your database protection from a single software solution, regardless of the engine type, or even where your databases are located, or even where you want to move your backup data to, whether that be on premises or in the cloud. And so I think we all know this, but the more point solutions you have, the more time and resources you need to manage them. Not to mention, you probably even need a few specialists on hand. And so a single platform that streamlines operations, but will also give you that crucial visibility you need to see across your entire database environment is a must. But the solution should also streamline operations through automation, including the automatic discovery and protection of new databases as they're created. And so today's organizations need an SLA-driven approach to protection that automates backup operations. So that way, database teams not only get their time back to focus on driving additional value for the business, since they aren't left managing custom scripts or manually scheduling backup jobs, but to also help scale the number of databases that they can support. And most importantly, because the solution really removes the complexity and simplifies operations, they don't need to be a specialist. And so these capabilities are core to Rubrik for databases. So much so, we've brought them to our Rubrik NoSQL protection for Cassandra, DataStax, and MongoDB. And so similar to how really any other workload is protected by Rubrik, your NoSQL databases can be automatically discovered and protected, streamlining operations to help you and your team get your time back and ensure your databases are always protected. All you have to do is deploy Rubrik, and we will discover sources, databases, and even the tables as they're created. And you can assign an inherited SLA to automate the frequency and retention of your backups. SLA assignments are inherited from source to database to table, so you can have peace of mind knowing that your databases are protected and no longer require manual scheduling. But on top of that, our automated protection delivers data mobility and storage economy. And because data is always stored in its native format, Rubrik offers multifaceted data mobility. What that means is you can recover all or just a subset of the data to dissimilar database topologies from on-premises to the cloud, or even to different clouds. And when it comes to efficiency, we deliver semantic deduplication. And this means that Rubrik is able to identify identical data fragments, such as a database entry, for example, so that only one copy of the data is stored. And this allows Rubrik customers to reduce their multi-replica data sets and ultimately save them on storage. And so all in all, Rubrik NoSQL protection is a great way to help streamline your operations, unify your protection across on-premises and the cloud, and really deliver the performance and efficiency you need to operate at scale. Okay, so I know we covered a lot of ground, touching on a lot of key capabilities. So let's shift gears here a little bit and turn it over to Vipul, who will show you, how these key capabilities translate into Rubrik NoSQL protection in real time.
Thank you, Justin, for setting up the context so well. I think this is no exaggeration to say that as innovative as NoSQL databases are to solve the challenges for enterprises when it comes to storing volume and variety of data, they arose with it a similar innovative need to protect their NoSQL data, given the technical challenges around the distributed architecture they have. Now, with Rubrik NoSQL, we are solving these biggest pain points of NoSQL databases with simplicity, so that the enterprises can be rest assured of their data protection and they can focus more on unlocking more value from this data. Let me share some visuals with you to give you a sense of how Rubrik does it. As you can see, I have a Cassandra database that has just gone under protection with Rubrik NoSQL. And as you can see, there are a lot of key spaces and column families that I can see on the screen now. Now, this is typically the state where you will begin with, right? Let's say there's a DBA Ryan. Ryan has just been given this task to start protecting the Cassandra database as well. Now, the first thing that someone will need to do is they need to create an automated SLA. So this is where the SLA domains tab will come into picture. You can click on this button, create SLA domain. You select which object you want to protect, in this case, a Cassandra database. And let's say you want to do it every 12 hours, and I want to retain it for, let's say, a month. Well, you can put in a name here. For easy remembrance, let's say I can put it so this is just a summary of what the SLA protection will look like. And you click on create to add this SLA to Rubrik. Now it's asking you, well, you have your database objects, you have created a protection policy as per the business needs, but now you also need to start protecting your database, and that is where you need to go to manage protection. It will again take me back to that screen. Let's say I go inside this particular cluster and I select this particular column family. Now this column family is already assigned an SLA. Let's say if I want to start protecting it, it shows me the SLA that I just created. Now it asks me where do I want to write it to. So I can select S3 storage or NFS or Azure, or this is also a possibility to write to Google Cloud. So let's say if I select S3, I do next, and it will tell me, okay, now this particular object is going to be protected with this new SLA. With this, I can assign. Now, you also have one more, in the true spirit of automating protection, there is one sweet little thing with Rubrik NoSQL does as well. Now, if you want to automate protection, you also want to be covered for protecting those objects that get generated on the fly. You do not want to assign protection for all those new objects manually, one by one. So what you can do is, when you are creating a protection, you can select monitor data changes, which means that with this frequency, every that with this frequency, there will be objects that will be checked for. If there's anything new that has been detected by Rubrik, those objects will immediately inherit the SLA that has been set to the parent object. Now, let's say there's in your day-to-day operations, you have started you have created an SLA, you have started protecting your object. Now the next thing that you might feel a need, okay, there is a case for restore. What do you do? Let's say if I have this particular column family with me, I can see there are a lot many snapshots or backups available with me. So let's say if I select any one of them to restore from, it will ask me what destination do I want to restore to. Rubrik does provide you the ability to restore to any other Cassandra cluster, even though it is not having the same topology. Let me choose existing key space. We configure some parameters in there. Now this operation is going to asynchronously take place in the background. And this is just a way to see it. If you, as you can see, there is a restore job that has been created and it will soon start running. So this is this will complete, and then you'll start seeing the newly restored column family within the inventory tab. That's all that I would like to cover in this session. I would like to pass it on now to Justin to cover the next agenda item.
Awesome. Thanks, Vipul. That was great. It always blows me away just how robust yet simple Rubrik makes it for customers. I don't have a technical background, but I'm fairly confident I could jump in there and do that as well. So just to wrap up, today's database teams need modern backup and recovery solutions that really consolidate protection of all their NoSQL databases, not to mention all their workloads and applications across on-premises and the cloud into a single platform, allowing them to offload day-to-day management of backups so they can get their time back to focus on more strategic projects, all while delivering, the storage economy, access to the cloud, and speed and performance to meet their organization's needs. And just in case you haven't seen the report yourself already and were interested in a complimentary copy, Rubrik is proud to be ranked among the leaders in the 2021 Gartner Magic Quadrant report for the second year in a row. And in this report, of all the solutions, Rubrik ranked furthest to the right for completeness vision, again for the second year in a row. So definitely take a look if you haven't already. You'll also notice that database protection was actually called out as a strength, which is really exciting to see. And for those looking to take a deeper dive on Rubrik, I strongly recommend keeping an eye out for some of our virtual events where you can actually get hands-on with the product and can see it in action yourself. But there's also some additional resources here, including an ebook on what to look for in a modern database protection solution, as well as a link to a guide on what questions to ask when modernizing your backup solution. Now, links are provided here on the slide, but just in case, all these materials are available on the Rubrik website as well, just in case. Okay, and lastly, before I hand it back to Scott to close this out, Vipul and I wanted to quickly run through some of the most commonly asked questions that we get when presenting on NoSQL protection. So let's start with the first question here. We are already taking OS level snapshots. And so what is the additional value with Rubrik NoSQL protection? So great questions, one that we get quite often. And so the answer here is that the OS level backups create copies of the full operating system in VM, and hence are not application consistent. And moreover, to reduce the storage costs, these backup systems rely on block level deduplication, which is not efficient for big data databases and file systems. And so Rubrik NoSQL protection does not do block level or snapshot level backups. It understands the customer applications, database collections, data formats, and other semantics to provide value for both backup and restore. In contrast, a traditional backup, you're forced to restore all your data irrespective of what you've lost. And it allows customers to do collection level backups and queryable restores. This reduces the recovery time drastically. Additionally, with Rubrik NoSQL protection, you can do topology-free restores. As an example, you could restore the backed up data to a different topology than the source topology. And this opens up new use cases for synchronizing production data for test and dev environments, as an example. Okay, so the next question here, can I use both a local share and an Amazon S3 bucket in the same NoSQL protection? And so the answer here is yes. In Rubrik NoSQL protection, data stores are selected at a backup policy kind of a level, and you can choose the NFS for certain policies, as well as an Amazon S3 or any other supported storage type for the other policies. And the last question here for me before I pass it over to Vipul, what happens if the Rubrik NoSQL protection node goes down? And so great question. And the answer is Rubrik NoSQL protection is built as a highly available distributed system. As of the latest version, both Cassandra and MongoDB versions of NoSQL protection can be installed as a 3-node distributed architecture. But in addition, the backup data is stored on a separate storage location of your choice or the customer's choice. And so any downtime or outage on a node does not affect the backup data. Awesome. So that was it for my commonly asked questions. Let me pass it over to Vipul.
Thank you, Justin. The next question that we hear the most is similar to the current setup. Can Rubrik NoSQL protection allow policies for hourly backup for a week or daily backups for a month and so on? Well, if you talk about the traditional backup systems or even those native protections, they create a copy of the entire data at each backup interval. So as a result, customers are forced to use these workarounds to maintain backup granularity while at the same time keeping the cost of backups in check. Now with Rubrik NoSQL, it's a forever incremental backup, and this is a native backup as well. So it only is storing the database changes that have been there from the last backup. Now, this eliminates the need to create such complex weekly, monthly, or yearly policies. And mind you that this is after semantic deduplication as well. So you are also getting more reduction in the size of storage which are needed for such backups. The second question that we get thing is, How does NoSQL protection work via the single pane of glass? Is it a separate tool or utility? Well, no. So it truly fits right into the others or the existing set of workloads that Rubrik protects. So for example, if you take Cassandra or if you take MongoDB, they're just going to appear as some other cards that you see right simply that you see similarly for Oracle or SQL servers, just like that. It's going to appear inside the inventory tab. So the users, they just need to select the relevant source database to be protected to avail the usual seamless protection experience from Rubrik. With that, I will pass it over to Justin.
Awesome. Thanks, Vipul. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found this information helpful. Let me pass it back to Scott to close us out.
Okay, thanks, Justin, and thanks for putting together a really informative presentation, and Vipul for a nice demo, and appreciate those, going through those common questions. That was great. So this is just a quick reminder about those resources in your handouts section, like the Gartner Magic Quadrant that Justin mentioned, and the 3 Rubrik PDFs. This is your last chance to grab those before the event ends here in a minute. So before we do wrap up, we have one more piece of business. It's the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card is Christy Purdue from Indiana. Congratulations to Christy. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the actual Tech Media team, I'd like to thank Rubrik for making this event possible. And last but not least, I'd also like to thank all of you for attending. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.